Welcome to the ITAD Talk Podcast with your host, Jeff Bittner.
All right, so we'd like to welcome our guest, Ray Sandlin of River Vista Partners. And Ray, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company?
Sure, Jeff, and good morning. I've been involved in the ITAD and electronics recycling industry for about 17 years now, and including selling several companies and helping to run an ITAD firm. And so it's what I've done since 2018 is consult. And so in my consulting practice, I advise other organizations on how to scale, how to improve, how to go to market, best practices, sustainability initiatives, and so forth. So there's really a broad variety of advisory opportunities across the industry. Along the way, I've also been very involved in certification and standards as co-chair of the R2 Technical Advisory Committee, chairman of the RIOS Board of Directors, chairman of ISRI Certification and Standards Committee, and so forth. So I speak frequently at conferences, trying to just mentor and help other companies figure out this thing called ITAD.
Yeah, and in fact, I think that's where you and I actually met, was at the eScrap show. You were, I think, on a council there, or there's a few speakers, and you were introducing them.
Yeah, I've moderated panels. I've spoken there a number of times, and yeah, it was great to meet you, and it's been a great relationship the past couple of years as we work together.
Yeah. So I thought we'd talk about had a couple of topics this morning, and so one would be how the industry has changed over time. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what you think, how things have changed, and how you've seen it currently.
Sure, Jeff. You know, one of the interesting things about this industry is it is very dynamic because technology is constantly changing. But the core ITAD services, the core ITAD practices really haven't changed in 20 years since they were first instituted to help organizations with mitigating risk of data, mitigating risk of environmental compliance and brand compliance. The core services are the same. Eliminating data security concerns, and providing audit reports to create an audit trail that shows that they are compliant with all the laws and best practices. That's kind of core. What has changed over time is new standards have come in. New entrants in the market have come in. You don't have just a handful of companies focused on ITAD anymore. You've had a lot of other companies come in, traders, brokers, as well as scrap companies that are moving their way up the value chain. So that's one of the things that's changed, is the number of players that are involved in what they call ITAD. Another thing that's changed is, as I mentioned, certification and standards, best practices about how to do this and having third parties validate and verify. So we've seen several revisions to the R2 standard. We've seen RIOS come to market, updates to the ISO standards. eStewards has come to market. The NAID standard has come to market. So there's quite a bit that has evolved in the standards side of the industry. What we're seeing now is some transformation, though. Some new things are going on. Do you want any questions about how the industry's changed in the past, or do we want to talk about where the industry is going?
Yeah, let's talk about where it's going, because I know it's quickly changing, and some of the standards are changing also.
Indeed. So R2 came out with a new standard last year, and so we're starting to see companies be certified to R2 V3, which is challenging. There's new requirements around data security, new requirements around downstream diligence, and EH&S best practices. But that's just on the standards side. What we're really seeing on the best practice and operational side is companies are focusing more and more on the circular economy, on making sure that the product products and materials really do go back into either reuse or recycling and back into the manufacturing processes to make sure that circular economy is working. And that ties into ESG. So ESG is a concept that's been around for a while, but it's really rapidly gaining prominence. ESG is environmental, social, and governance. And so it's just starting to see companies get involved in that, plug into that. The SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, is working on rules for public corporations on how they report ESG. So the ITAD industry has an opportunity here to impact corporate ESG reporting, to help support ESG, because so much of what ITAD does deals with environment, deals with repurposing gear and providing it to people that can benefit from it. That's the social side. And then the governance side with standards and how organizations govern themselves. So I think in the next couple of years, we're going to see a transformation there around the circular economy and around ESG.
Yeah, right.
Simultaneously. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention that, we were both at the ITAD Summit show recently, and there was an executive from Starbucks, and he was talking about that it's now even getting to the point where the truck that's picking up the material, is it a diesel, a gas, or an electric vehicle? So it just seems like that things are changing quickly, and along with that, they're wanting to, every item, has to be scanned when it goes onto a truck and with a GPS and tracked all the way to the facility it's going to. So it seems like the Fortune companies are definitely keeping closer tabs on their electronic gear.
Yeah, indeed. I think that's a great point. And I know the person from Starbucks that spoke there. I've known him for years, and he's really sharp on this stuff. What we're seeing is the things like on-site services, where you can serialize every asset before you remove it from the building, or even data wipe that asset before you remove it from the building. Those are becoming more and more important for ITAD companies to be able to support. The ability to track that and ensure chain of custody from the source all the way to the ITAD processor is becoming more important. It's not important for every enterprise, but it is important for some. And so an ITAD company needs the ability to respond to that as they consider it. You mentioned the fuel for the trucks. Well, where that goes is into the greenhouse gas measurement. So some organizations are starting to measure their greenhouse gas output, whether it's emissions from their facilities and energy use, or whether it's the logistics piece or other aspects of greenhouse gas emissions. There are standards around that. So you're starting to see some of the companies in the industry focus more on that. Progressive companies like Starbucks are probably going to lead the way in that as they consider their impacts on the environment.
Yeah, that seems like it's a part of the business that's changing quickly. So obviously we all want to be making changes, and so that we're better able to accommodate what their needs are, and if anything, kind of be in front and anticipate where they're going.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. One of the other things, Jeff, that has shifted very recently is the need to support workers that are working from home. Following, as COVID emerged in 2020 and really impacted society, we saw many more people working from home, and so they needed equipment to be able to do that, whether it's working or educating from home. And so the ITAD players had a big part in that. Now that they've been out there for a while, and some of the corporations have said, hey, we're going to shift our whole business to allow a segment of our workforce to stay at home, then ITAD kind of takes on a different flavor. We need to have solutions for those remote workers to be able to reclaim their gear securely, and get it to the ITAD processing facilities. So we're starting to see some shifts around that to enable those kind of services, both from a security standpoint and a logistics standpoint.
Yeah, Rike, it's funny that you mentioned that because I have a friend right here in Naples, and he started a company called Shift, and they basically are putting a mobile office in people's homes. And I think it runs maybe around $4,000, but they'll come in and set up the partitions, they'll set up the electronics, and basically on the partitions you can have them, flippable, where you could have an office decal on one side, and then you could flip it and have maybe some sort of a artist rendering or something, so that if it isn't a viewpoint in your home, it's more pleasant to see. But they're talking to corporations that are talking about putting 5 or 10,000 employees to work from home. So it's funny how the this part of the business is transitioning very quickly, and of course too, the virus has kind of helped speed up that timeline.
Indeed, but one thing that continues to be, or kind of those core ITAD services continue to be a need. And so whether it's work from home, whether it's data centers or data center migrations, or whether it's office environments, those core ITAD needs remain. The need to secure the data, the need to transport the equipment, remove it from service, and get it to someone that can properly process it, and the desire through reuse to recover some of that value. So, Jeff, that's one of the things that you and I've talked about a few times, is just how good Exit Technologies is at whether it's at the system level or at the component level, recovering value and enabling that product to be reused. So I applaud Exit Technologies and your organization on your expertise in that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much, and you've been a big part of that for helping us put in the procedures and making sure that we've got the right people in the right seats. And and I'd like to take credit for it, but it's really our team and the contribution of people like yourself that have really helped that.
I was happy to contribute.
I know that's there's probably only a few recyclers that have actually made that transition. I know that we're working on it for our next audit. So can you tell us a little bit more about that, perhaps?
Sure, Jeff. This latest version of R2, they worked hard to make it a little more flexible, so it matched various business models, but also more stringent, so that the bad actors could not just get passed on and get their certificate. So it really became much more strict and prescriptive around certain practices to make sure that people are doing the right thing and can back that up.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was going to just bring out one of the things from the ITAD Summit. One of the recyclers or the ITAD companies that was speaking there was talking about they were using a partner in a foreign country, and they really wanted to keep track of the material and that it was going where this partner said it was going, and they were putting trackers on the equipment. And even though they've got a fully documented process and had vetted their partners, the partners were lying and moving the material somewhere that wasn't approved of by this company and their corporate client. So they were able to identify that kind of in midstream, I guess you might say, and actually go and pick up that material. So it's just kind of interesting how as companies are reaching out to scale different areas, that it is so important to be able to keep track of those IT assets and to protect that corporate client's brand.
Indeed, and it's not just protecting the corporate client's brand; it's also protecting the citizens and workers in developing countries that we want to encourage their economies to grow. We want to encourage them to learn and have resources and become better in their own lives. But we also don't want to just dump on them. We want to do it in a way that is an encouragement, not a detriment. And so making sure that this equipment goes where it's supposed to go, and there's accountability for that is really important. So I'm excited to see the movement towards GPS trackers and the ability for companies to police their downstreams a little bit better, because there's even though you can do extreme due diligence and really try to make sure that there's control over where it goes. Ultimately, things can slip, things can lose control, and so it's important to stay on top of that on an ongoing basis. So that is one of the things in R2V3 is just better control over that. Jeff, I think there's 950 or so companies or facilities that were certified worldwide to R2 2013. We're just starting to see the first companies be certified to R2 V3. So we're not really sure how many will upgrade. Will some fall out and choose not to upgrade because it is more prescriptive, it is more controlling. And some of those probably should not have been certified in the first place. Others may just choose that it doesn't make sense for their business, and that's okay. But for those that do upgrade, that do go through the extra effort, it will distinguish them, enable them to differentiate themselves in the market a little bit better.
So the 950 companies, I'm assuming that's worldwide, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And what is your estimation about how many will make that journey? You think maybe like 80% will make that transition, or do you think it's going to be even less?
That's a big question in the market right now. We don't know. There is another 2 years worth of movement, migration that's possible. So SERI, the housing body behind R2, has laid out basically a 3-year schedule from the time their standard was released that companies had to transition to the new standard. So we're really just kind of in the first half of that right now, and we're starting to see companies move over. But I think it's yet to be seen just what the attrition rate is on companies that are certified. I hope that many choose to transition, but I do expect some to fall out. I just don't have a percentage I can give you, Jeff.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Other market conditions that will affect how we move forward. We're seeing a great deal more privacy legislation out there. So, GDPR was introduced in Europe a few years ago. California implemented a new law similar to GDPR. Virginia implemented a new law, and now we've seen a total of 6 states that have implemented privacy legislation that really puts greater requirements on enterprises and on ITADs to comply with these privacy rules. So that's actually good for ITAD, because ITAD's all about data security and making sure that data is properly eliminated and sanitized. And so I think that these new laws, as people become familiar with them, and even more states adopt them, then we will see more interest in ITAD services. So I think that's a good thing, but it is a cautionary note that everybody needs to be aware of those.
Well, too, I was going to mention, it seems like that, since we're tracking everything, and because we deal with data centers, mostly that's kind of our core focus. But in tracking all the drives and the serial numbers, the audit trail, and the wipe certificates, that it's not only important to the corporate client and their customers, but it's also a protection for us and our company, because if a client says, well, you picked up X, Y, and Z, and you've got a full audit trail, and that item is not in there, that's a protection for the ITAD company as well.
That's a great point, Jeff, and that gets to best practices. The ability of an ITAD company to back up what they say. just to say that, hey, there's a report, or to say, hey, we didn't receive something. If you don't have good controls in place and good reporting and be transparent about it, it is a liability for the ITAD company. And so those companies that like Exit that have really put in those best practices, I think are protecting themselves as well as their clients.
So do you have any viewpoint on the data center market, like as far as more corporations are moving to the cloud and things like that? I mean, kind of what are you kind of seeing as far as the future, as far as the data center market?
Oh, that's a great question. The data center market has been transitioning for several years now from private data centers into the cloud, into especially the really large data center organizations like AWS and Microsoft and Google. But we are still seeing private data centers out there. Companies want want control over their equipment and over their systems and security, and so that some companies will retain private data centers or co-located data centers. So I think that's going to continue. It may be industry by industry, more in the verticals, where you see certain organizations that focus on hyperscale, and to make sure that they have really optimized computing practices to be able to support their business. The other side of the data centers is how you connect to it. And so you see edge computing, you see IoT, you see there's a lot of things that are growing out of the data center migrations that are going to continue to grow. So IoT is just really still in its infancy. The number of devices and routers and other ways to connect to the cloud are just going to continue to grow. So, this migration is going to continue, but we're also seeing new technologies and new ways of connecting develop. So ITAD's around to stay, but ITAD has demonstrated over time their ability to be flexible and adapt to changes in technology. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I was going to mention one of the things that we had noticed as well is that we're getting more and more calls from corporations that have data centers in the U.S. and internationally. And I mean, we just recently did a takeout for a corporation, one data center in the U.S. and two are in foreign countries. So that seems to be more of a trend too, where they want to be able to have one company that can has the ability to handle their footprint. So it's kind of a nice trend for us.
And that is a challenge for multinational corporations, is that there is no one provider that can cover every region of the planet and do it well. And so you do see a lot of ITAD companies partner. And to be able to provide that support, the multinational corporation needs that level of support and best practice. And so you see ITAD companies partner to make sure that they can meet that need anywhere on the planet. So that's kind of an exciting development. And a part of the question that enterprise needs to ask is, how do you make sure that I'm serviced well in other regions?
Right. Yeah, that's really an important point.
Jeff, one of the other things that's kind of interesting in the ITAD industry right now is how companies are using social media and other new web tools to get the word out. Part of ITAD is education. Part of ITAD is helping enterprises and IT employees, IT people, to understand best practices, understand the risks that they have, and understand best practices. And so we are seeing more use of social media to do that. Podcasts like this or other methods with white papers and media. That's something that I think Exit has done a good job with, is making sure that they're serving an educational purpose in helping the market understand best practices.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, we've really tried hard, and we've got a great team here that helps us with our marketing, and that's one of the things that I had as part of my role here at Exit. So.
Indeed. All right. Well, Jeff, do you have any other questions?
No, I think that'll do it. So, do you have any? You got a big schedule coming up for your next few weeks, doing a lot of traveling?
Well, that's a good question. Here we are in September of 2021, and COVID is ramping back up, and so we've already had some conferences occur, and some are being canceled. So I'm not really sure what the next few months hold for us in terms of events. It is exciting for me that ITAD companies are using this time, this transitional period, to implement new practices, to implement new go-to-market strategies. And so one of the things that I love to do is help. Is help companies understand how to go to market in new ways or how to scale. And so that has not slowed down at all, although the conferences are a little bit hit and miss right now.
Great. Well, Rike, I want to thank you again for being our guest on ITAD Talk this morning, and hope you have a great rest of your week and stay safe.
Well, thank you, Jeff. You too, and say hey to everyone at Exit Technologies for me.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
We invite you to follow and subscribe to the ITAD Talk podcast. You can find the latest episode at itadtalk.com and on all your favorite podcast apps. And don't forget, the best way to support ITAD content is to rate and like the show on iTunes, Google, Spotify, or anywhere you might listen.